right, we're now recording. Excellent. So welcome. This is just giving us a chance to follow up on work we did over the summer. As you remember, after we studied grading for equity, we met with the commissioner, and she was very excited about the work that we've done. I'm so sorry. This is a chance for us to just talk about what we've done in the 6 weeks or so since we met with the commissioner, and where we think we might go next. So the first thing I'd like to know is, have any of you tried something as the school year began that worked and you're really glad you did it? You know, like you made a commitment to changing a practice and you did that. Did it go the way you thought? Did you have to change it more? How did that work out? Someone want to volunteer to tell us about that? All right, Nicole, thank you.
Against what I thought I would do, I figured that the most manageable piece in this craziness that is right now would be to take out extra credit. My English 1 students hate it. They're coming up from middle school. They're looking for opportunities to enhance their grade. But overall, it gives me a better sense of what the students are doing, what kind of work is manageable. I think often when we give extra credit, we don't know how long they're spending at home, maybe at the expense of other more pivotal, important assignments. And I really just thought in the past I was doing the right thing by offering this extension activity, this attempt at an honors activity, so that they could keep their minds going. But because everything about this year is so essential, getting rid of that made sense in my practice. And other students seem to feel that it wasn't really accurate either. When we have conversations about, I got rid of it and here's why, they're like, that makes sense. That's not really fair that somebody could enhance their grade that much or get 4 points. My school does 4 points added to your final grade for the semester or quarter, depending upon how we do that this year. If you did summer reading, that's a huge leap forward. So that's not going to happen this year. So we'll have a better representation, I think, of what they can do when they're motivated and when they're less motivated.
Great, thank you. Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you. So I'll give you wait time, but you know, I'm going to call on you if you don't volunteer. So. Emily.
I decided to give students a 50 instead of a 0 in the grade book for missing assignments, and I explained that the 50 does not necessarily represent that they completed 50% of the assignment. It represents that they have not given evidence of a standard. A 50 is a failing grade, but it's mathematically giving them hope and a chance to come back, especially quarter 1 is really short. I think here at Kennebunk High School, I think it ends at the end of this month. And by the time you finish some of the community building and establishing habits and expectations, by the time you get into the content, the quarter's almost over. So
right.
Every assignment really counts. And I really think 1-0 could be hard to come back from in quarter 1.
Yep. I think that was one of the biggest arguments, you know, in the book, was think about how if you weigh later learning earlier than more than earlier learning, that really works out. So that's great. Thank you.
Yep, I'll tag right on to that because that's what I decided, not to grade anything right now. I'm entering that they are doing some of the things and other things not, but when I do enter that they did something, I'm rating it as 0, so no one has a grade right now.
Oh,
and we're not going to have grades till the end of October when we consult and talk about their growth. So we've set goals and on certain standards, and we'll reflect together on that with individual conferences. And they'll have to do a little metacognition on their learning.
I will be eager to hear how that goes. That's great. That's
Me
really
too.
putting the that's giving them lots of hope, but it's also putting a lot of the responsibility for the grade on the student.
Yeah, it's surprising they're all doing everything every day in class right now. And part of that may be just that they're happy to be back and they aren't talking as much to each other and distracting each other because of social distancing and masks, but
The novelty of it, but yeah, but maybe not. Maybe it's because there's it's just they're not focused on the grades. They're focused on what they're doing.
yeah, and we also talked a lot about just reading and writing in general and how we get better at it. We only get better at by doing it.
Right.
And I did talk to them about all the stuff I learned about grading this summer and where grading comes from and how I'd rather see us progress with their growth. So trying to be clear with them too, even though it's not totally clear because there's not an actual grade yet.
Right.
But
Oh yeah, that's exciting. I'm eager to hear more.
yeah, we'll see.
Ellen, what's going on? What have you tried?
Well, Emily, I think I'm going to have to, I wasn't liking how I had some students, if it was missing, it calculates in our system as a 0. And so, but I have put in that they can do redos. I tell them, I don't want you to have stress for my class. I'm only going to grade you on, we took our core standards this year and that's what we're focusing on. I need to, in English, I need to know that they can cover the speaking and listening and the reading and the writing and do that. And then as long as they can do that, I'm happy. And if they can master those areas, then I'm delighted. So, but in keeping with that, if they're missing something, I am doing minimal grading as far as homework. I give them a 1 if it's there, missing if it's not, and then it doesn't count for anything. It just kind of tells me if they get a 1 or a missing, then whether they are keeping up with what they need to do in order to use that information when they have to show and apply. But I wasn't liking that I had some kids, we've got our first grades closed on Friday for our first quarter for progress reports. And yeah, and so I'm like, so I've said to the kids, I don't want you stressing about this class. If you have something that's due and you can't make it, just email me. And then I think so they love that. And I told them no extra credit. And I explained everything that I learned this summer about grading and how awesome I thought everything was. And they all agreed. They could see why no extra credit and for doing things early and that kind of thing. I talked about how it can be important, but it's not a grade. And but one thing that I'm running up against now is the importance of communication with my students. I teach sophomores and freshmen. And so I've said to them, and we use Google Classroom, and I said, if I've already graded it and it goes into Infinite Campus and it's missing, or you redo it for a higher grade, you have to email me. Like I even put together a Nearpod with missing things on how they had to fill in the blanks. And most of them are like email, communication. But at this point, I am getting not frustrated, and I know the onus has to be on them because I've put my expectation out there, but I said, in order to give you the best grade I can, the most accurate grade, I need for you to email me to look at your assignment very specifically. They're used to someone who chases them down to get things in.
Oh, so responsible. Patty, we really make them responsible. I think that's great. I think that's what we're moving toward. Excellent. Thank you. How about you, Fanny? Have you had a chance to try any of the things we explored this summer?
Yes. I took the idea of the redo one step forward because I know how we all switched to pass fail for grades this year. I also teach social studies in addition to English. So I was doing personal finance, and I actually had the opportunity to give them an incomplete for personal finance and do the stuff they needed to do in order to actually change that to a pass grade over the past 2 months with them. So did that. I'm also planning on doing as well the grade floor of 50 for anything. No, nothing below a 50. I have not seen how that's going to affect grades yet because I haven't had my quarter close, and I do all of my grading record keeping by hand in the old-fashioned notebook instead of a nice online program. So haven't sat down to tabulate everything yet. So I'm interested to see actually how that all plays out when I do. I know it is kind of a hard thing. Part of the section we talked about in the books about how students see their grades as a reflection of themselves.
Right.
And it can have a negative view and cause them not to be as motivated. I think that was some of the issue because I do work, I'm an alternative school teacher, work at the Carlton Project here in Holton. And I think having this new grade flooring and being able to give them a buffer to keep them above, and it's still a failing grade of 50, and it's easier to bounce back from that. And that math just resonated with me, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how the grades turn out this quarter. So
Excellent. Yeah, love to hear from that too. Especially as a motivator, students, you know, who are struggling with motivation anyway are feeling an incentive. That's great. Very helpful. Welcome, Kristen. We were just going around and talking about what we've tried and how it went. Did you try something different this year?
She's at softball practice in the chat.
Okay, so she's practicing minimal grading with the 4-point scale.
How are you catching a ball at the same time you're typing?
Yeah,
Moms can do everything, all of it, all at once.
that's right. Keeping track. And it's great. Softball practice in the fall, too. That's great. So thank you, everybody, for sharing those experiences and what's going on. Folks who couldn't make it today were sending me some messages about what they've tried. A lot with the 50 or the no zeros or something in this first quarter in order to make sure that they're helping students build hope and really looking at what they're actually grading for students. And so that seems to be a common theme. Have you noticed any ripple effects? Has anybody seen anything that, you know, either students are talking to other kids, there's other teachers who's interested? Have you had a chance to look in your school? Are there any ripples as a result of the study that you've done and the practices you're implementing? Nicole, do you have a ripple?
I will say that there's been a pro and a con. So however your ripple goes, right? Sometimes that ripple knocks your boat over. One of the things that we have found is that we came into this year, of course, with lots of different expectations, and things have changed considerably. We are still having conversations at the high school level about how grades will be calculated this year. So it's been very difficult to move anyone closer towards new practices because they're feeling very stuck already. They want to hold on to their practices. They don't want to make a lot of big moves. However, it does seem like a very ripe time to start talking about minimum grading in terms of what feedback does that give? Instead of, it's been a policy at my school now for a year and people hate it. But now we're starting to say, that is a 70. A 70 is that kid just barely passing, and that would have been a 30 if we were putting in all of these zeros. That 70 has an opportunity to rebound, to earn credit. And we have a model at my school where this Friday, I won't see students for another month, and I'll start up with a new group. So retention's a huge concern for all of us. And I think this is a more equitable practice in terms of looking at what they'll lose over time too. We want to put more weight on the end of the year, but is that actually fair in a situation like this where we'll see them for 1 month chunks? Right now in person, we don't know what the future looks like. but in terms of their retention and skills. So as we did pre-assessments this year, we did find that skill drop-off was really, really high in some pretty critical areas. So I think that this minimum grading, finally, my district has a taste for it. So that's wonderful. So there's more conversation happening about that at the administrative level. One thing that's frustrating in my English department, however, is that people seem more than ever to be tied towards giving accurate feedback, and accurate feedback seems to very much be still about a 100-point scale in numbers. So we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about that, hopefully this year. Again, the principal's very supportive. I feel like I have a lot of materials I could bring into PD days now, but I think it's just a matter of getting everybody ready, and I'm sure everybody's feeling that in their districts. We're settled in now, but it's taken us a few weeks to feel settled and to feel like we know what we're doing. So I hope we have those conversations soon.
I had this crazy idea that by the end of that first week of September, we would be settled. We'd be like, okay, now this is how it's going to be. We know what we're working with this year. And that was not the case at all. I'm with you. I think it's like now I'm beginning to see things sort of settle down and get into a routine or a pattern. And I'm very encouraged to hear that there is some opportunity for discussion. So has anybody else experienced a ripple, something that, is sort of spreading out from this idea of looking at grading equity, just examining our grading practices?
I can share how I've been collaborating with case managers and other support staff in the school. I have implemented a one-class grace period. So when an assignment is due, I collect it that day, and in the in Power School, I mark whether it's been completed or missing. And then the students can bring it to me or, submit it before the next English class. And I told my students my rationale, and it's not just that I want them to have like more time to sit on their thoughts or more time to procrastinate. It's because if we have all of these people like supporting students and rooting for students and parents as well, those people should have a chance to be part of the team in a productive way and not always feel so reactive.
Yes.
So
Well, that's a really good point.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah, that is great. That is a really good point. Kristen mentioned that she was trying to close the gap with learner autonomy, and that definitely, holding them accountable for their learning is an important part of that. They're not going to be, especially at high school, kids really want that autonomy. They want to feel like they're empowered and in control. And I think feeling like they're not defeated before they begin is a big part of that. So that's great, closing the gap with the autonomy. So I want to take a few minutes and tell you a little bit about where I see this going. Since our meeting with the commissioner, I've been given a lot of thought, looked at all the feedback again from all the sessions that had come before, and looking at the work that all of you did over the summer, and looking again at that question. Remember in the summer, Patty and I asked you as you were working in your small groups to study the pillars to think about two things. And one was a commitment within your own practice, but another one was identifying some things that needed to happen for systemic change in grading practices. And some of you have alluded to this, and certainly Nicole, I think, introduced the topic very nicely. So what I'm envisioning is doing another round of this text study, doing it again. Only I have reached out to my colleagues who are responsible for math, science, and social studies. And, it seems like there needs to be other content areas so that we have these seeds, these populations of teachers in different content areas who are looking at their own grading practices and really I had reached out to some other content areas as well, and they said that doesn't apply to us at all. So I thought, okay, I'll start with these 4 content areas, see if we can bring them together to look at our grading practices and how we can maybe systemically make some changes by getting some other people on board. So we've submitted a proposal to buy 100 books. I've challenged my colleagues to reach out to 15 to 20, see if they can recruit 15 to 20 content area teachers to participate in another round of tech study. And we're going to look at also principals and curriculum coordinators, trying to reach out to some administrative folks who might want to come into a tech study. So we'll do the first part. I think the way, and I'm going to give Patty credit for organizing it this way. I think the way that Patty organized the first part, the study of those first 6 chapters, by tapping prior knowledge and really pulling up your own belief systems and your own practices before you get in and do the reading, so that you're primed for the purpose of the reading to be looking for some of those hot topics. I think that really worked. There was tremendously popular positive feedback from each of those sessions for taking that particular strategy. So I'd like to do that again with this new group. But then when we get to the 3 pillars, because of the time crunch in the summer, just because of where we were in life, the way the world was operating, we said choose 1 pillar, just focus on 1 pillar for this summer. I think I'm going to change that up for the winter so that we'll offer study of each of the pillars the way that each of the pillars break down. So it'd be, previewing like 2 chapters at a time as we have those discussions, so that you have a chance to study each one of the pillars if you want, and make that optional. One of the things I like about this particular text is that a lot of what's in there has been presented to us across the state in different ways, in different labels or different contexts. So there are lots of people who are finding something in the book that's familiar to them, but it's maybe packaged a little differently. And some it just astounds me. Some people find it palatable in this context where they might not. And I think of it like tomatoes. I have grandsons who'll pull tomatoes out of a salad, but when I slice tomatoes onto garlic bread and bake it, they love it. And so, they won't say that they hate tomatoes, they just hate tomatoes served a certain way. Okay. So I think that's the story behind some of these grading practices. And I really hope that by getting some other content area folks and other administrators involved in the study, so that we have a common language and a common framework for having some of these discussions, that we can really look at making some more systemic changes. And I'm very excited about that. What I'd like to do is to reach out to, the folks who did the study in the first round, and I'll send this message tomorrow for follow-up, but I'd like to reach out to people who did the study in the first round and see if you might be willing to design and facilitate 1 session. Obviously, these will all be done virtually, and we'll have a format like we did, 10 minutes of presentation, 10 to 15-minute breakout in small groups, come back to report out, and set folks up for the homework for reading what comes next. So I don't think it would be a huge and heavy lift, but that also, if you've been doing something, or if you in particular want to study something in another pillar, it gives you the opportunity to drive that conversation, right? So you can be in control of how that session goes to get your needs met, and undoubtedly that will meet the needs of other folks as well. So I'm gonna throw that out there to see if folks would like to do that, and I'll show you what I've got laid out for a plan for doing that. And also, I'll send you a link to registration if you want to talk to folks, or some other folks that are starting to get interested. That's why I was asking for the ripple. Maybe this is a time to say, if you'd like to do this, then we're gonna this opportunity is going to exist, and I'm going to see it stretched through the school year. I'm not going to do it all in a week or something. It's not going to go too fast. What I'm looking at is a session every other week. And if you want to facilitate a session, I will negotiate with you for when you want to do it, right? So you'll have some control. I mean, there's going to have to be an order, but you can choose day of the week, time of day. That can be in your wheelhouse. So that's my plan. I had to do a little convincing of my colleagues at DOE to say, look, the commissioner is interested in this. She wants to see this going forward. She wants to see more conversation. This is really consistent with a lot of changes that are coming in assessment in general. So we need more people talking about how they grade, i.e. how they assess student learning. We need to be doing that. And now is the time. As several of you have said, because of what's going on this year, we have an opportunity. There may be will where there wasn't will before. So this may be the golden opportunity to really make some serious changes. So that's my goal. Now I'm going to stop talking, and I want to hear your feedback. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea to expand everything. And I think that I was guilty of, I was so focused because I studied the accuracy pillar, and I was so focused on accuracy and going everything, you know, because I felt a little stressed as we were getting close to the end and the presentation and everything. And so her clock shuts off, and then she's like, okay, I've tolerated enough today. And today she was a little needy in my classes. I'm like, I'm sorry, my co-pilot is here. So I think that, you know, because I got to accuracy, I was so focused on that, leading my team and everything. And then the other two fell off. And I thought, well, the motivation's going to come anyway with doing this. But I completely forgot about, like having 50 be where it bottoms out instead of a 0. And that's what I felt terrible about. But I think getting peers into this, I would be rippling if I were at school, but I'm teaching remotely. So I'm hoping that my students are talking about it, because I don't talk about it constantly, but I talk to them about how important it is to me to grade them fairly and accurately for what they can do.
Well,
so,
and one of the things that can happen is all of you who participated the first time can sign up for the second time and come to whatever you want. I mean, you can come and participate in the pillar studies that you didn't do the first round. And we'll see if the discussion is any different since we have different content areas involved. But that's absolutely a possibility.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I would definitely sign up and do it again. And I just signed up the MCELA today when they sent out about the distance learning playbook. I was like, yes, and I've already bought the e-version, which is like less than $9.
Really?
On Kindle, yeah. So I don't know if I got it at a good time when it dipped or something, but I got it anyway. So
Great.
yeah,
So,
I'm pretty excited.
Anybody else? Just any questions or thoughts about scaling up, bringing in other content areas, doing it again?
I think it makes sense to bring in the other content areas because we don't want to operate in a vacuum or a bubble, whatever the expression may be. And I am fortunate to be surrounded by like-minded colleagues within my department, but I haven't ventured out to hear what others might say around the school.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, Kristen, I get, like this is not a good time to facilitate, but if you have feedback or ideas, something like, oh, you know what, you should really, when I was studying, I didn't pay enough attention to this. And you can give me that kind of feedback saying, I suggest you pay more attention to this within a chapter, or this thing that kind of stood out in a different way based on what you're experiencing. I'm happy to hear that, happy to get that feedback. So I guess my ask of you is when you get this information, spread the word. Try and think about some folks in other content areas who might be key to bring in and to help them do this. You know, let's keep, I was thinking that maybe for alum of the original study, I would plan a once a month kind of check-in like this, like what have you done, what's worked, what do you need, what ideas do you have, just to make sure that you're feeling like you can move forward. But also it'll be interesting to see how many folks who participated in round one will come back to study the other pillars and to really, you know, expand and deepen their knowledge of their grading practices and their intentionality. By the way, the commissioner absolutely loved the video. That was a great move. I'm gonna have to learn how to do that. All right, if there's no more discussion, I'm going to call it, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Tomorrow, I'll send out my plan. I'll send out the link for registration. I'll send out the link to this recording. So if you studied with some folks this summer, want to check into them, that's great. Keep them in the loop. And just be thinking about advice for planning a second round with other folks. All right, excellent. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Get out and enjoy the sunshine.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you. I gotta shut off the recording.